Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Small Cap Recap. This is Mike from Who's For Trading. Today, we're going to talk about GEVO, G-E-V-O. So it's June 18th. We're in the midst of summer. Summer trading has definitely been upon us. So the action has been relatively slow. Um, so lately, when opportunities come, I think people get very aggressive. So I think GEVO is a good example of what happens when both sides, bulls and bears, get overly aggressive. Um, so the point of this conversation as well today, guys, is I want to show why, when you see stocks like this, um, and you see some very fluid movement because you have pretty decent liquidity, it's really good to use some EMAs, in my opinion, exponential moving averages. Um, EMAs weigh short-term prices more, so they tend to be more intraday friendly, and they help you with stocks like GEVO, in my opinion. Um, determine when the trend has shifted. I started trading using EMAs, and don't use them as often now. But there's certain times where EMAs, a stock will agree with the, EMAs more so than others. So, when that happens, it's fine to use them. Otherwise, I've kind of adapted to using just VWAP and price and volume. But GEVO is a good example. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to throw on the 13 EMA, which is what I like to use from the Foos 4 system. And you can see that I like to use moving averages on the daily, guys, because that's a big picture thesis. And everyone uses moving averages, like the 100, the 200 are very big levels, the 50. So on the daily chart, they're very applicable. But intraday, the daily chart is going to define your big picture plan. Then intraday is where you align on multiple time frames. So GEVO was a nice example just of summer trading, how the market's been slow. When opportunities are there, people get over aggressive. And GEVO is about a million share float. It's super tiny. So I talk about this all the time on Twitter, how things get crowded super easy. So it's been a nail and bail environment because you don't know what's going to happen. GEVO fundamentally is like a dry stock. For those of you that remember dries, same chart. This thing was about $1 million a share after all the splits they've done, which is criminal basically. So now you have GEVO, which is basically just doing the same thing. So everyone knows that it's a crap company, which is part of the reason you got the squeeze today. I was involved short in this. I shorted it in the morning off of 5. And for those of you that follow me on Twitter, Foos4Mike, I post my charts with my entries and exits, and was out at 450, 448 was the lows. Left it alone because that's the environment that we've been in, nail and bail. And I was saying to people in chat, this could definitely get crowded. Fortunately, I didn't touch the long at all. It's easy to say in hindsight, of course, but this is where the EMAs come into play. And even on the short side, you can use them for a downside trend. Then once it breaks above it, you can exit your short. This is a great example of that. And then once it basically broke over 525, which was the pre-market high, and it's no coincidence it held that on this candle perfectly. Then you get the classic low volume sell-off, volume, low volume sell-off, volume. And then before you know it, all this volume starts coming in and shorts are trapped, that it just squeezes. And this is where the EMA came into play. Not only, if you're longing it, the idea is that as long as it's above the 13 EMA, the trend is still to the upside. And once it cracks it, that is considered a possible trend reversal. Does it work all the time? Absolutely not. No EMA works all the time, but sometimes it does work and it's very convenient. Um, so ended up topping out near 10, which perfect over under for the first double digit. Drops and starts consolidating. This is when I started shorting it a little bit because that $10 number on the daily chart was definitely overextended. You had a lot of resistance between all the way up to 1175, I would say, and I figured this is a good spot to try the short after this ridiculous move. So I was basically scalping it from the nines to the eights. But every time I covered it was providing liquidity, it would bounce right back. So I started to see that, and then this was the first spot that we broke the 13 EMA. So I was looking to maybe fade it. We snapped back above, and you can see we started to just trend it. So that's where I was like, all right, I'm going to back off for a little bit. Then you get the squeeze over highs. So shorts get trapped, squeeze over highs. Resistance becomes support at about 10. So very fluid movement in my opinion. And then once it got over 10, I said this on Twitter, if you were shorting it, because I was watching it the whole way up, if you were shorting it from that 11 break to 21, you were shorting front side and you were trying to top tick it because this is the 13 EMA did not even get touched. It did right here off the first halt. And then that's when your new shorts were trapped and it just kept going. So it didn't break this EMA the whole way up until here. Even on the 1 minute, and again, I'd like to reiterate this because we get this question a lot. EMAs are going to be applicable on different time frames. You can't, always use one time frame and one EMA. So I like to switch it up. Usually 2, 3 to 5 minute is good. The 1 minute, in my opinion, is I think, too choppy. Um, so once we got this rip, this was all front side. On the daily chart, I think it just squeezed because people were trying to time it in here, and then we finally get that next 20 levels pretty significant. So this was that over under. I was thinking about dabbling for the 20, but it was just I just never pulled the trigger, and within about 5 minutes it was down to 18. It was at the halt, and then it faded back to 15. So a 5 point move, pretty quick, and then it started to top out near 1750, which was the perfect spot off the halt, where a lot of longs were basically underwater. So this was basically where longing it, you had no reason to sell, and you can sell on that 13 EMA crack. Because I have trouble as a long guys being patient. This is where the 13 EMA helps me. You can just sell out on the way up if you were longing it, and then once that 13 EMA breaks is when you want to get out. And then if you want to get back in on if it gets back above it, then you can go ahead and do so. But it never did. This thing just kept fading off 1750. I had got a small short from 17 to 16. I was a little pissed off that I was just kind of mentally drained staring at it all day, and ended up having a 50% retracement all the way back to 12 basically. And this is where I was all chop. And backside basically. So this is where shorts were really attacking it. You can see that 1750 was significant, and then 15 was significant. So this is where I wouldn't be touching the long at all. Once all this was in, unless you were looking to play this was the only spot where, because this was the initial breakout zone right here at about, you could say 1080. It's no coincidence it's bounced there. These things tend to do that. That initial breakout zone before this entire rip can be a great cover zone as well. Also right at VWAP near 10. I'm sure everybody wanted that flush of 10 that never happened. So this was all backside, good for shorting. And then you can see after hours we're just slowly trickling up. So I was watching this before I was starting the video. I was thinking about taking a swing short, and this is exactly why I don't. It's just because this thing, again, caught the 13 and just kept going after hours. And then it broke it, and now it's just chopping around. So it'll be interesting to see what GEVO does tomorrow, guys. Just hoping to show you guys both sides, using the short-term EMAs to help you on the long side, as well as on the downside, it confirmed this move. But again, this is where the 13 EMA didn't really help all in here. So you can see that there's certain times to use it, and there's certain times to not. So hope everybody enjoyed this. Check us out, Trading Live, foos4trading.com.